Hi everyone, and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin.
High above your head, the sky is not still. It moves, it breathes. You can't see its lungs, but they are there in the hush of dawn breezes, in the pull of air across your cheek, in the way trees sway and clouds roll without a sound. The sky is a living rhythm, a gentle engine that never sleeps. Imagine lying in a wide field, your back against the earth, eyes wide open to the infinite blue above. The air is soft, almost silent, but even here, even now, the sky is working. Beneath, the quiet molecules are in motion, a dance of invisible things. Tiny particles of nitrogen and oxygen, so small you could never see them, are drifting and swirling in patterns as old as time. This is air pressure, the invisible weight of all the sky pressing down. Even though it feels light, the air above you stretches hundreds of miles high. Every breath you take is touched by this unseen ocean of gases. At sea level, it presses with the weight of 14 pounds on every inch of your skin. But you don't notice it because you've always lived beneath this gentle weight. It's like being cradled in the palms of the atmosphere. Now imagine the sun rising, golden and slow. Its light doesn't just brighten the morning, it warms the earth unevenly. Some places heat quickly, like dark soil or asphalt. Others warm more slowly, like oceans or forests. And where the air is warm, it grows lighter and begins to rise, like a sigh lifting toward the sky. Cooler air, heavier and slower, moves in to take its place. This is how wind is born. Wind is the sky's breath. Sometimes it whispers through the leaves, soft and steady. Sometimes it races across mountains, fierce and untamed. But always, it follows the simple truth. Warm air rises, cool air rushes in. The dance of temperature and pressure creates the breeze that brushes your face or bends the grass beneath your feet. Let's drift even higher now, above the rooftops, into the layer of air called the troposphere. Here, all the weather you've ever seen is born. The winds that shape storms, the air currents that carry clouds, they live here, in this lowest layer of the atmosphere. It stretches just about 7 miles up, thinner and colder, with every breath of height. But within it, the sky churns with life. One of its most graceful dances is the global wind system. Picture the Earth as a giant spinning sphere, warmed by a distant star. The equator, closest to the sun, receives the most heat. Here, air grows hot, rises, and flows toward the poles. Meanwhile, cooler air from higher latitudes sinks and flows back toward the equator. But because the Earth is spinning, these flows don't move in straight lines. They twist and bend, forming the great trade winds, the westerlies, the polar easterlies. These winds don't just stir the clouds, they carry seeds, rains, birds, and even ocean currents. They are the breath of the planet, circling over continents and seas. A puff of air in Africa might travel to South America, carrying the soft dust of a desert across an ocean to feed the roots of a rainforest. Even in stillness, the sky is never truly still. It is stirred by convection, the quiet cycle of warm air rising and cool air falling. On a sunny afternoon, watch how a hawk glides in circles without flapping its wings. It's riding a thermal, a pillar of rising air heated by the sun-warmed ground. Balloons do this too, drifting higher as warm air inside them lifts gently upward. Sometimes this motion becomes powerful, towering up into the sky as a thunderhead or storm cloud. These clouds are born when rising air cools and moisture condenses into droplets. The higher it rises, the more dramatic the result. But even the fiercest storm begins with a quiet warmth on the ground, a single breath of heated air seeking the sky. The sky also speaks in quiet waves. One of them is the jet stream, a high, narrow river of fast-moving air that snakes through the upper troposphere. Jet streams form where warm and cold air masses meet. Their speed can reach hundreds of miles per hour. Planes flying with them arrive early. Planes flying against them struggle in headwinds. But to the earth below, the jet stream is invisible. It leaves no footprints. And yet, it guides the paths of storms, carries clouds across oceans, and shifts with the seasons. It is the high breath of the sky, a silent current flowing through air too thin to touch. All around you, pressure shifts quietly. A barometer may show it, dropping a sign that weather is changing, that rain may be on its way. Low pressure often invites clouds and storms. High pressure brings clear skies, calm days, and quiet evenings. You can't see pressure, but you can feel its moods. Animals do to birds flying low before a storm, cats curling tighter, bees vanishing into their hives. The sky sends quiet signals, and nature listens. Now close your eyes. Imagine you are floating inside a single bubble of air. Around you, countless other bubbles press gently, some warm, some cool, some rushing upward, others drifting down. Each one is part of the great breath of the sky. From the quiet breeze through your window to the great jet streams in the heavens, the atmosphere moves in harmony. It is gentle and vast, patient and alive. The sky is not empty. It is full of breath. It is the silent engine that turns the world. Let's drift deeper now, higher into the sky's invisible pulse, where soft rivers of air move without edges, where pressure bends like slow tides and temperature draws lines in the open blue. You are still lying there, still breathing quietly under the sky's vast dome. But now your mind has risen into the winds themselves, carried on the back of unseen forces that have no beginning, only motion. The earth spins gently beneath you, its axis tilted just slightly. That small tilt, just 23.5 degrees, is what paints the seasons. Because of it, sunlight is never shared equally. In summer, one half of the earth leans in, kissed by long days and warmer skies. In winter, it leans away, touched by shadows, cradled in cold. This gentle tilting changes everything. Where light lingers, air warms and rises. Where cold gathers, it sinks. And in between, the sky rearranges itself, folding and unfolding in patterns too vast for the eye. This tilting is what causes monsoons in India, hurricanes in the Atlantic, and the still chill of winter fog in a quiet valley. In every part of the world, weather follows light, not with certainty, but with rhythm. These rhythms, like heartbeats, return again and again, not always the same, but always familiar. The sky keeps its own calendar. Now imagine the boundaries between warm and cold air. Where they meet, weather awakens. These are called fronts, the quiet edges of change. A cold front moves like a sweeping hand, pushing under warm air and lifting it fast into the sky. Thunderstorms often rise behind its path, like bruises blooming in the air. A warm front, slower and more subtle, glides over the cold, blanketing the sky in soft, layered clouds, and gentle rain that can last for hours. Fronts are invisible, but they shape the sky like sculptors. You can feel them arriving. The air thickens. The wind changes direction. Birds pause. The world waits. When the front passes, everything shifts. Temperature, pressure, cloud, sound, even scent, everywhere. Weather forms from contrast, from opposites touching. Wet meets dry, warm meets cold, fast meets still. These meetings are not always violent. Often they are delicate, drawn in whispers, but they are always alive now. Turn your gaze toward the ocean, that blue heart of earth. The sea and sky are lovers, forever exchanging breath. Water rises as vapor carried upward by warmth. It cools and gathers into clouds, falls again as rain or snow flows back through rivers and tides, and begins again. This endless circle is the water cycle, the breath between earth and sky. Clouds are born in this tender exchange. At first, they are just vapor, invisible and weightless. But when rising air cools enough, the vapor turns to droplets, millions, billions of them, clinging to dust or pollen or salt in the air. A single puff of breath can seed a cloud, if the conditions are right. Some clouds rise like towers, cumulus. Others spread like quiet blankets, stratus. Still others curl and feather like brushstrokes, cirrus. Each type holds a different story, a different future. You can learn to read them like lines in a quiet book. When enough droplets gather, they fall, rain, snow, hail, the sky's way of returning what it borrowed. And though a raindrop is tiny, soft as a sigh, the sky holds millions of them. A single thunderstorm can release over 1,000,000 tons of water. It begins gently, with invisible vapor. It ends with the sound of rain on your roof, or snow against your window, or a flood down a silent street. Some storms are more than storms. They are engines. Hurricanes, born over warm ocean waters, are nature's largest breath. They draw heat from the sea and spin into great spirals. At their heart is the eye, a circle of calm, where skies clear and winds fall still. Around it, winds rage at over 100 miles per hour. But the storm is not angry. It is simply trying to balance heat and pressure, a giant, swirling answer to the uneven breath of the planet. Thunderstorms are smaller, but just as poetic. Warm air rises fast. It cools, condenses, releases heat, rising even faster. Inside the cloud, updrafts and downdrafts tug at each other. Ice rubs against water, building charge, and then lightning. A sudden release, bright and bold, lighting the sky in a silent flash, followed by the rolling voice of thunder. It is the sky exhaling tension. Yet most of the time, weather is gentle. It happens quietly in the spaces between. A morning fog wrapping a field in silver, a dukest leaf under a sunrise, the shimmer of heat rising from asphalt, the hush of snowflakes piling on a fence post behind. All of it is energy, flowing, shifting, never resting. The sun gives it freely, the earth shares it unevenly, the air carries it far and wide, and the sky uses it to write stories, stories of breeze and storm, of clouds and calm. The Coriolis effect is one of those stories, named for a French scientist. It describes how motion curves on a spinning planet. It is why trade winds slant westward, why storms spin counterclockwise in the north, clockwise in the south. The earth turns beneath every gust and drop, and so nothing moves in a straight line. Everything arcs gently, like the path of a leaf in a breeze. Even the seasons breathe this curve. In spring, the air feels looser, full of promise. In summer, it expands and shimmers. In autumn, it folds in, crisp and clear. In winter, it stills and tightens. These are not just changes in temperature. They are changes in the sky's mood. You can feel them in your bones. The sky also holds memory. Dust from a desert can seed rain in another continent. Ash from a volcano can drift for months, tinting sunsets orange and skies gray. Smoke from a fire, salt from the sea, even pollen from a single tree, all rise and ride the breath of the sky, high in the stratosphere. Above the weather, the ozone layer waits, a quiet shield, catching ultraviolet light before it reaches the earth. Without it, our breath would burn. This too is part of the sky's balance, a soft veil to protect the life below. Everywhere, weather reflects balance. It arises not from chaos, but from contrast, seeking peace. Each gust, each cloud, each droplet is part of a quiet pattern, not perfect, but purposeful, not still, but steady. You are part of this pattern too. With every breath, you exchange air with the sky. The oxygen you inhale may have once passed through the lungs of a whale, the leaves of a tree, the winds over a mountain. The air is shared. It carries memory, motion, and meaning. Even when you sleep, the sky continues its gentle work, cooling the earth, guiding clouds, cradling silence. The stars overhead may seem distant, but their light filters through layers of this breathing world. The sky that breathes does not rest. It sings in pressure and temperature, in motion and memory. And as you listen, you begin to understand, not with facts, but with feeling. You are not beneath the sky. You are within it. Night comes gently, and with it, the sky changes again. The winds slow, the sun rests, and the air becomes still enough to listen. Stars begin to appear, distant and delicate, each one shining through the same sky that shaped the wind and gathered the clouds. Now, without the heat of day, the sky begins to cool. This cooling is not sudden, but soft, like a hand smoothing the folds of a blanket. As temperatures fall, the air near the ground becomes heavier, pressing downward. Sometimes, this makes fog tiny droplets suspended in the stillness. Like a memory the earth cannot let go. The breath of the sky at night is different from the day. It is quieter, slower, but no less alive. Now radiant cooling begins. The warmth of the earth, gathered through the sun's touch, rises upward, released into space. The ground cools faster than the air above, and this gentle imbalance sets new motions in place. On some nights, a breeze will stir, not from distant places, but from the simple shift between warm earth and cool sky. These are katabatic winds, sliding down slopes and hills like the sigh of sleeping mountains. Higher still, the atmosphere forms layers. The troposphere, where clouds and weather live, gives way to the stratosphere. Here, the air no longer rises in convection, but glides, smooth and slow. It's colder, thinner, and filled with ozone, the sky's invisible guardian. Above this, the mesosphere cradles falling meteors, burning them to light before they ever touch the ground. And higher still, the thermosphere opens like a window into space, where the northern lights ripple and satellites glide silently in their orbits. But it is the troposphere, the low breath of the sky, that cradles our lives. Here, where air is thick enough to hold clouds and carry birds, weather continues its quiet work. Each morning, the sun begins again. Light strikes rooftops, rivers, leaves, warm air rises, winds stir. The cycle renews, not with noise, but with grace. Sometimes, weather surprises us. A sudden gust that slams a door. A still morning that turns to thunder by noon. But even surprise has pattern. Somewhere, pressure dropped. Somewhere, air moved faster. Somewhere, moisture rose. These threads weave together silently until they touch us, and only then do we call it. Whether we often think of the sky as a ceiling, something above us. But the sky is also within us. The nitrogen you breathe was made in ancient stars. The oxygen in your lungs was crafted by plants and algae long before your birth. You are not separate from this breath. You are shaped by it, changed by it, sustained by it. Every cell in your body has known the sky. Think of the calm before rain, how the air grows heavy, scented with minerals and earth. That smell, called petrichor, rises from dry soil, touched by the first drops. It is a signal from the sky, a whisper of change. You can feel it on your skin, even if you can't name it. This sensory memory connects you to the weather, not through science, but through sensation. Now listen to the silence after snowfall, how it blankets sound, softening even your thoughts. Snow changes the acoustics of the world. It quiets footsteps, muffles voices, and invites stillness. Each flake is a tiny miracle, formed in the high cold, shaped by temperature and humidity, falling with patient grace. No two are the same, because the path each takes through the sky is always different. The sky tells time, but not in minutes or hours. It moves in rhythms, the shifting of winds, the tilt of seasons, the dance of sun and shadow. It is a clock made of light and pressure, of heat and cloud. You don't need a watch to know it. You only need to look, to feel, to breathe. When people talk about the weather, they often speak of inconvenience, rain delaying a walk, wind blowing away a paper, snow blocking the road. But beneath these small disruptions is a deeper story of balance, motion, and connection. The weather is not something that happens to us. It is something we are part of. A child chasing leaves in the wind, a farmer watching the clouds, a sailor reading the waves. All are listening to the sky's language. It is a language older than words, spoken in temperature and tide, in sunlight and storm. To learn, it is not to master it, but to remember it. It lives in our instincts. Even cities, covered in stone and glass, breathe with the sky. Rooftops absorb heat, streets funnel wind, parks cool the air. At night, Cities release their warmth slowly, and this too becomes part of the sky's rhythm. The urban heat island, a pocket of warmth within a city, is a new breath in an old system, still part of the cycle, still held by the sky. Somewhere, always, the weather is changing. A cloud forming over the ocean, a raindrop beginning its fall, a breeze stirring the edge of a forest. These changes are not loud. They do not announce themselves, but they matter. They shape the soil, feed the rivers, nourish the roots. They guide the flights of birds and the migrations of whales. They carry stories. In the end, the sky asks for nothing. It moves because it must. It breathes not to be noticed, but because balance requires it. The wind does not wait for applause. The rain does not need thanks. But when you stop, truly stop, and feel the air on your skin, or watch the light between leaves, or listen to the hush before snow, you understand. You are inside something vast and gentle. You are part of a breath that began long before you and will continue long after. You are held by the sky that breathes. It begins not with a storm, but with a shimmer, a gentle hush in the air, a feeling you can't quite name. Somewhere far above, the sky holds its breath. Clouds gather not with force, but with patience. The world slows down, and before the first drop ever touches the earth, something ancient stirs in the air. The memory of rain. Rain is not a beginning, it is a return, a traveler making its way back home. The water that falls on your skin once rose from a sea, once drifted through sky, once curled inside a cloud like a thought waiting to become a word. Every raindrop has a story, older than any one life, yet tenderly new each time it falls. Imagine a single drop of water. Perhaps it began in the ocean, warmed by sunlight, lifted as vapor into the air. It rose silently, leaving behind its salt and weight, becoming something light enough to float. It joined other molecules, drifting upward, higher and higher, where the air is colder, where clouds begin to form. There it found dust, a speck, barely real, but to water, dust is a seed. Around it, vapor began to cling. A droplet was born. As more droplets formed, they found each other. They gathered in clusters. They joined into clouds. Some clouds were tall and bright, their edges shining in the sun. Others spread low and wide, gray as whispered secrets. Inside each one, the dance continued, vapor becoming liquid, droplets merging, weight growing. Not all clouds bring rain. Some drift and fade. But sometimes, when the air is just right, when the weight becomes too much to hold, gravity calls the drops home. They begin to fall, softly at first, then faster, through air warm or cold, past birds and leaves and rooftops, until they meet the earth again. The rain you feel might have once been part of a glacier or a lake or a wave crashing on a distant shore. It might have slept inside a tree, or flowed in the blood of an animal, or drifted through the breath of someone long ago. Water moves, in cycles, but not in circles. It remembers, it forgets, it changes, it returns. And with every drop, the sky whispers, "I have not forgotten you." When the rain arrives, it touches everything. Pavement darkens, leaves glisten, dust becomes mud. The air fills with petrichor, that gentle scent of rain on dry ground, released from oils in soil and stone. It is a smell that carries memory. awakening something soft inside you. You may not know where it comes from, but your body remembers. Some rain is light, like mist, barely more than air, suspended and drifting. It coats your eyelashes, softens. Your hair turns breath to fog. This is drizzle, born from clouds too shallow to hold storms, but tender enough to weep. Other rain is bold, fat drops that splatter, run down windows, drum against roofs, like fingers tapping out a lullaby. And sometimes rain pours in sheets, in waves, in sounds so loud it hushes your thoughts. But no matter its shape, rain is always return. It brings water back to the earth, to rivers, to roots, to reservoirs. It fills wells, quenches fields, feeds moss and mushrooms. Even puddles on sidewalks hold stories, little mirrors reflecting the sky that gave them life. Think of how plants respond. Seeds buried in dry soil may wait for months, silent and still. But when rain comes, something inside them stirs. A root reaches down, a sprout pushes up. Rain is not just moisture, it is invitation. It says, "Now you may grow." In forests, rain falls through layers, canopy, understory, floor. Each leaf and branch slows its fall, redirects it, shares it. This is throughful, water passing from sky to soil by way of leaf and bark and stem. It's not just a fall, it's a journey full of pauses and touches and transformations. Even the soil greets it slowly, holding it among roots and worms before letting it move on. Some rain vanishes quickly, soaked up by dry earth, drunk by thirsty trees. Some lingers, forming streams, puddles, reflections. And some becomes runoff, gathering speed, joining rivers, carving paths. Water always moves. It never waits too long in one place. But as it moves, it leaves behind life. In deserts, rain is rare but powerful. When it comes, seeds burst open, flowers bloom overnight, and creatures emerge from hiding. A desert in rain is a song with a single verse, brief, brilliant, unforgettable. In rainforests, rain is constant, gentle, dependable, a heartbeat that never stops. Here, life grows in layers, tangled and vast, each plant and creature shaped by the rhythm of rain. The memory of rain lives in rocks too. Over years, centuries, water seeps into stone, freezing and thawing, cracking it open, shaping valleys, creating canyons. Rain wears mountains down, smooths sharp edges, rounds riverbeds. It does not rush, it does not shout, but it changes everything. Rain also carries messages. It brings minerals from sky to soil, washes pollen from air, clears smoke and dust. Even its sound holds meaning, the way it rattles on a tin roof, taps against glass, splashes in a gutter. It is percussion, rhythm, a soft music written in drops. And sometimes rain becomes ice, sleet, or freezing rain. It coats everything. In crystal, turns roads slick, tree limbs heavy, wires delicate. This frozen rain is not snow. It is water, caught in the middle, falling as liquid, freezing on contact. A transformation you can hear, see, feel. But even in its most fragile form, rain remains water, essential, ancient, alive. Now close your eyes. Imagine a droplet hanging at the edge of a leaf. It trembles, reflects light, waits. It is not in a rush. It knows gravity will take it. But for this moment, it holds still, remembering sky, remembering flight. remembering the warmth that lifted it upward in the first place. That is the memory of rain. A circle with no beginning, a story without end, and even as it falls, it begins again. Let us now follow the rain as it sinks into the ground, where its journey becomes quieter, slower, but no less profound. Not all water rushes back to rivers and seas. Some of it stays behind, nestling into soil, moving grain by grain, like a whisper traveling downward. This is infiltration, the slow descent of water into the spaces between particles of earth. It fills the pores of sand and clay. It slips into root chambers, and it settles into aquifers, deep reservoirs held in stone. Older than memory, vast and dark and still, the earth drinks this water patiently. Roots, both wide and fine, reach for it like fingers in sleep. Trees draw it upward through trunks and leaves, releasing it again into the sky in a breath called transpiration. Every leaf is a mouth, every plant a quiet fountain. Together with evaporation from lakes and puddles, they return water to the air. This combined breath, plant and earth and sky, is called evapotranspiration, and it, too, is part of the memory of rain. You can't see it, but the air is always holding water. Invisible vapor drifting beside you, above you, within your breath. The amount it can hold depends on warmth. Warmer air carries more, like hands cupped wider. When the air becomes saturated full to its edge, the vapor turns again to liquid. Condensation forms on glass, on grass, on your skin, a bead of water at the corner of a petal, a misted window on a chilly morning. These are the places where rain begins to remember itself. High in the clouds, condensation builds around tiny particles, salt from sea spray, smoke from fire, dust from deserts. These microscopic seeds give water a shape, and as droplets gather, they collide and merge. This is called coalescence. It is not random, but delicate. Each collision adds weight, each merge a step toward descent. When a droplet becomes heavy, enough to overcome the upward push of air, it begins to fall, beginning its return, beginning its rain. Sometimes, in cold clouds, the story is even more intricate. Ice crystals form around frozen particles. Supercooled water, still liquid, below freezing, clings to these crystals. As they grow, they steal moisture from neighboring droplets, growing larger, heavier, more beautiful. When they fall, they may remain snow, or melt on the way down, or become sleet. Each path is chosen by temperature, by altitude, by the subtle choreography of sky. No two raindrops take the same path. Their shape, speed, and destination are sculpted by air. Some fall straight, others dance, caught in tiny currents. Large drops flatten like pancakes. Small ones remain spheres. Some evaporate before they ever touch ground, a ghost of rain, called virga, falling through dry air and vanishing like a forgotten thought. Yet even what doesn't reach the earth still matters. It cools the air, moistens the sky, shifts the balance. Rain's influence extends beyond its fall. It is presence, even in absence, in tropical places. Rain comes in pulses, afternoon showers that pass quickly, then give way to steam and green. In temperate zones, it may last for days, steady, gray, a hush that blankets thought. In highlands, it meets cliffs and rises, cooled by elevation, forming clouds that cling to mountains like slow-moving breath. This is orographic lift, and it brings mist, drizzle, and gentle showers to places the wind must climb. And then there is the monsoon, a season, not a storm. In parts of the world, it arrives with devotion. For months, the land has waited. Dust hangs in the air. Rivers shrink. Then suddenly, the wind changes. Moisture flows from the sea. Clouds build. And rain returns, not as a visitor, but as a homecoming. Entire cultures shift with its rhythm. Crops bloom, rivers swell, songs rise in honor of its coming. The monsoon is a memory shared by millions, a chapter the sky writes every year. Yet, rain is not always welcome. It can flood, erode, overwhelm. It can fall too hard, too long, on soil too dry to drink it fast. Water that nourishes can also destroy, sweeping away homes, carving gullies, drowning fields. But even in destruction, it follows laws older than any map. Gravity pulls it down. Terrain directs its path. The land's shape becomes the water's shape. Floods are not just water out of place. They are the land's cry, a message about change, imbalance, excess. And after the water recedes, it leaves behind not only loss, but renewal. Silt-rich soil, seed-scattered banks. A chance to begin again. Rain carries more than water. It can carry pollution, gathering soot, sulfur, and particles from the air, creating acid rain that harms forests and lakes. But it also clears the sky, washing away smoke, cleaning leaves, renewing air. Its chemistry can nourish or hurt, depending on what it meets. And even in its danger, it teaches, reminding us that the sky's breath is shaped by all we put into it. In ancient times, people watched rain as a gift from gods. They danced for it, prayed for it, feared it. Myths grew from its rhythms, stories of weeping deities, sky spirits, and thunder beings. These stories held truths about the unpredictability of nature, about dependence, about wonder. Today, we understand rain with instruments, satellites, equations, but the awe remains. You can explain a rainbow, but still gasp when you see one. Rainbows, in fact, are rain's soft signature. When sunlight passes through falling drops at just the right angle, it bends, refracted into colors, reflected within the droplet, then bent again as it exits. This double bend separates white light into its spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. A rainbow is not an object. It is an angle, a perspective. It exists only when you and the light and the rain are in perfect relation. Move and it moves. Chase it and it vanishes. But while it lasts, it reminds you beauty lives in the alignment of elements. Rain can also sing. Its sound depends on what it touches: a roof, a leaf, a lake. It taps, splashes, drums, murmurs. A lullaby to some, a symphony to others. Sleep comes easier under its rhythm. Thought slows. The world narrows to sound and scent and breath. This is why rain feels safe. It draws you inward. Sometimes, rain speaks even before it arrives. Wind picks up. Air cools. Birds fall silent. A darkness spreads across the sky, not frightening, but deep. Then comes the first drop, bold, quiet, a touch on the cheek. It is a promise kept, and so the story continues. From ocean to sky to earth and back again. Each raindrop holds memory, motion, transformation. It falls, it soaks, it rises, it falls again, over and over, without end. This is not just a cycle, it is a song, a breathing pattern, a heartbeat, a way the earth remembers itself. And now we reach the quiet part of rain's journey, the part that lingers long after the last droplet has fallen. The clouds drift away, their bellies emptied. The storm softens, breaks apart, and dissolves into blue. The puddles shimmer in retreating sunlight. The air carries a faint chill, as if it has exhaled. What remains is not just wet ground, but a stillness, a clarity that feels almost sacred. The world has been washed, renewed. Everything seems softer, even the sounds of footsteps or birdsong. There is space again, as if the sky has taken something heavy away and left behind only breath. This is the after rain, hush, a silence full of meaning. Trees stand dripping, grass bends low, roads shine like rivers of mirror and ash. In this moment, the rain is gone, but its presence is everywhere. You can feel it in the softness of the soil, in the scent that rises from earth and stone, in the way light scatters in every direction. It's as if the world remembers its thirst and now gives thanks with silence. And beneath your feet, that memory deepens. Rain that soaks into the ground does not vanish. It becomes groundwater, invisible rivers that move slowly through the veins of the earth. Some of this water may stay underground for years, decades, centuries, locked in aquifers. Beneath layers of rock, it waits. It is not lost. It is simply resting deep in the body of the planet. Some of that water will return, drawn upward by wells or roots, or rising gently through cracks and springs. In certain places, you can watch it emerge, a spring bubbling from a hillside, clear and cold, born from rain that fell in another time. This is the memory made liquid, flowing through fingers, tasting of minerals and mountains. Water is never new. It is only passed from place to place, life to life, breath to breath. You to hold this memory. Your body is mostly water, more than half held in cells and blood and breath. The water in you once fell as rain, once flew as vapor, once froze as ice. Some part of you may have traveled through cloud or stream, tree or bird, stone or storm. You are a vessel of that endless cycle. You do not merely witness the memory of rain, you are shaped by it. The skies, to hold echoes of every rainfall. Weather patterns shift, atmospheric pressure adjusts, temperatures settle into new balances. Even days after a storm, the sky may carry its echo in wind that shifts direction, in clouds that form slowly, in the way light behaves across the afternoon. Rain leaves fingerprints on the atmosphere long after it disappears from the ground, and the land remembers in more visible ways. Seeds that soaked in rain begin to sprout. Mushrooms rise overnight, like thoughts breaking the surface of sleep. Rivers swell, carrying silt and leaves and the soft debris of the world. Birds return to sing. Animals emerge from shelter. The air feels alive, and with good reason. The water that fell has awakened it. In some places, the memory of rain is so strong it becomes part of culture. In dry lands, rain is celebrated, not just as weather, but as miracle. Poets write of it. Dancers mimic its fall. Children are taught to taste the first drop with tongues held high. And in wetlands, Rain is rhythm constant, familiar, like breath. People live with it, build with it, time their days to its moods. Umbrellas and boots are as common as sunlight. But whether rare or frequent, rain is always more than water. It is connection. Rain connects sky and soil, cloud and root, leaf and stream. It brings together what was apart. It feeds the web of life quietly and completely, and in doing so, it blurs boundaries. The sky touches the ground, the sea enters the air. The invisible becomes visible for just a moment before vanishing again. Even in cities, where the rain meets concrete and glass, it leaves its mark. It runs in gutters, pools on rooftops, streaks down windows. It gathers the scent of stone and metal, washes away dust, cools the surfaces of steel. A city in rain is transformed, quieter, more reflective. Neon lights shimmer in puddles, tires hiss across wet roads. People move slower, more inward and above. The clouds drift on, unmoved by walls or wires. Technology, too, has begun to read the rain. Satellites track clouds from orbit. Doppler radar maps every drop. Sensors measure pH, temperature, salinity. We have learned to predict rain, sometimes with astonishing accuracy. We know where it forms, when it will fall, how much. But even with all this data, we still pause at the window when the rain begins. We still feel something old and quiet stir inside us. Prediction does not erase wonder, and in that wonder, we also find responsibility. For the rain is changing. Climate shapes the rhythm of water. Warmer air holds more vapor. Storms grow stronger. Dry spells lengthen. Rains arrive harder, quicker, sometimes too late. Glaciers melt, seas rise. The cycle remains, but the balance shifts. And with it, the memory of rain grows heavier. But not all change is loss. Awareness brings action. New methods capture rainwater. Old wisdom is revived, harvesting rooftop runoff, restoring wetlands, planting to retain moisture in every corner. Of the world, people are remembering that water is not just a resource, it is a gift. To waste, it is to forget its story. And so we listen more closely now. To the rain against the glass, to the whisper of a drizzle on leaves, to the roar of a downpour on a tin roof. Each sound is a reminder. The rain returns, always, sometimes slowly, sometimes with force, but always with purpose. Close your eyes one last time. Imagine the rain falling around you. No storm, no wind, just the steady fall of droplets. You can feel them kiss your forehead, your palms, your shoulders. They do not rush, they do not ask. They fall because they must, because that is how the earth breathes, how the sky speaks, how the ocean returns. You are not outside this rhythm. You are inside it. You are not watching the rain. You are remembering it, and the rain remembers you. Far beyond the hum of daily life, in the upper folds of cloud and silence, a whisper begins, soft, charged, and waiting. It starts not with sound, but with separation, with invisible tension, building where sky meets rising warmth. The air thickens, though you may not notice. The light shifts, leaves pause, birds grow quiet. Something old and electric begins to gather. And then, in the distant sky, a flicker, sharp and silent, a vein of light etched into the clouds. A heartbeat later, the whisper becomes a voice. Thunder speaks, but before thunder finds its voice, the sky must prepare its breath. It begins with rising air, warm, moist, eager. This air is lifted by the heat of the earth, drawn upward into cooler altitudes. As it rises, it cools, and as it cools, its moisture condenses into cloud. These are not simple clouds. These are giants. Cumulonimbus, reaching 10 miles high, vast columns of vapor and ice and wind. Inside them, a storm is born. Within these clouds, the sky becomes a forge. Droplets collide, rub, break apart. Ice crystals rise and fall in turbulent loops. The movement is furious, but silent to the world below. With every clash, electric charges build. The lighter, positively charged particles rise to the cloud tops. The heavier, negatively charged ones sink to the base. This separation, this silent tension, grows stronger with every passing moment. You cannot see this charge, but the sky feels heavier, closer. Your skin might prickle, your breath might slow. The air becomes a waiting place, still yet full. And then, when the tension can no longer hold, the sky releases it all in a single flash dot lightning. It happens in an instant, less than a second, but inside that instant is a pathway of light, a return of balance, a crack of raw connection. The bolt may leap from cloud to cloud, or from cloud to ground, sometimes from the ground up. It follows the path of least resistance, branching like a tree, threading through the sky with brilliant, jagged beauty. The temperature of lightning is astonishing, 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun. It heats the surrounding air so quickly that the air expands violently, then collapses back. That sudden expansion, followed by compression, is what creates the sound we call thunder. Thunder is not just a noise. It is the voice of light made audible, and it tells us how close the lightning truly is. Count the seconds between flash and rumble. Divide by 5. That's the distance in miles. When the flash and the thunder come together, when the sky explodes and your chest feels the sound, the lightning is near. There are different kinds of lightning. Cloud to ground, the classic strike we imagine. Intracloud, the silent flicker that never touches earth. Cloud to cloud, dancing between towers of vapor. And ball lightning, rare glowing orbs that drift and vanish, whispered of more than seen. Each type is a shape of electricity drawn by the invisible fingers of atmosphere. And yet, lightning is not wild. It follows laws. It obeys the physics of charge, the structure of air, the pull of ions. We call it unpredictable, but it is precise in its chaos, a thread drawn across tension, resolving imbalance. Storms that birth lightning are called convective storms. They form when warm air rises quickly, building tall clouds that pulse with energy. Over land, this happens on hot afternoons. Over oceans, it happens when moist air meets cooler breezes. These storms are not always violent, but they are alive, pulsing with breath and current. As lightning falls, the sky does not simply brighten. It reveals for a moment. The landscape is lit in silver. Shadows sharpen, trees glow, faces appear in windows. Then it is gone, and the night feels deeper than before. The aftermidge lingers behind your eyelids, a reminder that even darkness holds light. Animals hear thunder long before we do. Dogs whimper, cows huddle, birds take flight. Their senses are tuned to the vibrations of air, the low frequencies that warn of approaching storms. Even before the first drop, they know. and so do we, though we often forget to listen. You've felt it, that sudden hush before a storm, when even your thoughts slow down. The sky is not angry, it is preparing, and in that preparation there is a kind of peace. The world holds its breath, waiting for the storm to speak. When thunder finally comes, it does not just roll. It speaks in waves, deep and distant, sharp and cracking, close and resonant. The shape of the land changes its voice. Mountains echo it, forests muffle it, cities bounce it between walls, and always it moves slower than the light, arriving like a messenger late to the moment. Some people fear thunder. It is loud, unpredictable, but to others it is a lullaby, a sound that rocks them to sleep, connects them to something greater than silence. Thunder reminds us we are small but not alone, that above us the sky is alive. Lightning also helps the earth in the high heat of the bolt. Nitrogen and oxygen in the air combine, forming compounds that fall to the ground with rain. These nitrates feed the soil, nourishing plants. Without storms, the world would lose one of its most important natural fertilizers. The sky, in its fury, gives life. In some traditions, thunder is sacred. The Navajo speak of it with reverence. The Norse imagined Thor's hammer striking the heavens. In Hindu belief, Indra rides the clouds with a thunderbolt in hand. These myths are not wrong. They are poetry written to explain the unexplainable, the power, the brilliance, the voice of the storm. And science, too, now sings that song in volts and currents, in data and sensors. But the wonder remains. So when you see the sky flicker, do not look away. Watch how it threads its silver through the clouds. Listen for the voice that follows. Let the whisper become a roar, and let that roar become silence again. For thunder, though loud, is born of quiet. It is a whisper that grew bold, a tension released, a balance restored. And always it passes. The storm moves on. The sky clears, the clouds break, and in the calm that follows, the air smells sweeter, the light feels softer. The world seems touched by something holy. You do not need to understand all the mechanics to feel it. The sky speaks, and your body remembers. You are not separate from the storm. You are a listener to its song. Let us now drift into the heart of the storm, where thunder is not just a sound, but a journey through air and memory. A storm does not happen in an instant. It is a slow gathering, shaped by warmth, lifted by winds, sculpted by invisible layers in the sky. Warm air from the surface rises, seeking the cool heights. And as it does, it carries moisture, heat, and momentum. The more it rises, the more energy it releases. The cloud grows, not just upward, but inward, layer upon layer of complexity, forming like petals in a bloom of vapor. Inside the storm, the air is wild. Updrafts rise at great speeds, hurling droplets and ice into dizzying heights. Tumble back toward the earth, pulling cold air with them. Between these flows, pressure builds. Droplets freeze, then melt, then freeze again. Ice rubs against water, particles collide, and electric charge collects. The cloud becomes a battery, charged, humming, alive. The top of the cloud grows into the stratosphere, flattening like an anvil. You can see this shape from the ground, wide, heavy, thick with silence. Beneath it, rain may already be falling. Hail may form not from cold alone, but from repetition. A drop rises, freezes, falls, is lifted again, layers building with every pass, like rings in a tree. When it grows too heavy, it falls to earth, round and solid, a memory of all the paths it traveled within the cloud. Sometimes the thunderstorm grows into something larger, a squall line, a mesoscale system, a supercell. These are storms with structure, with rotation, with ambition. A supercell may spin at its core, a quiet rotation called a mesocyclone. This spin, born of wind shear, layers of wind moving at different speeds and angles, may stretch vertically, growing into something more dangerous. This is where tornadoes are born. But not always. Most storms do not twist. They roar, they rain, they pass, they do not descend. But when they do, it is sudden. A dark funnel reaches down, hesitant, probing. Then it touches earth, and the sky and ground become briefly joined in a column of wind. The tornado dances, not always with grace, but with purpose, carving a path across field or town. And then it lifts, vanishes, leaves behind a silence, more powerful than noise. Tornadoes are part of thunder's larger story, a story of contrast. Warm meets cold, rising meets falling, calm meets force. And in the center of these meetings, the atmosphere speaks in light and sound. Lightning is not only dramatic, it is diagnostic. Scientists now use lightning data to understand the structure of storms, their growth, their decline. Each flash marks a pulse, a breath, a clue, and yet so much remains unseen. Inside the cloud, beyond our eyes, the sky is constantly composing. It gathers heat not just from the surface, but from the oceans, the forests, the breathing earth itself. Plants transpire, rivers evaporate, cities exhale warmth. This warmth becomes fuel, and storms feed on fuel. Over the oceans, this becomes something larger still. A tropical depression strengthens into a storm, then into a hurricane or cyclone or typhoon. Different names for the same spiral breath. These systems are vast, slow, persistent. Unlike thunderstorms, they do not form in minutes, but in days. They are guided by sea temperature, wind patterns, and the quiet curves of the earth. A hurricane holds thunder within it, embedded storms, squalls that spin around the eye like dancers. Lightning flashes in spiral bands, thunder echoes across waves, and in the center, the eye calm, clear, deceptive. Here, birds may fly, the sun may shine, but around the eye wall, the most violent winds, the fiercest rain, the loudest voice of the storm. Even when these systems strike with force, they are not chaos. They follow the laws of fluid dynamics, of thermodynamics, of balance. The heat they carry is not evil, it is ancient. It is part of how the earth breathes, adjusts, cools. But we live within that breath, and so we feel its power. On a smaller scale, every storm has its rhythm. You may notice how the rain changes, heavy, then light, then gone. You may notice how thunder rolls longer at night when the air is still, and how sound bounces more gently over wet ground. Even the color of the sky shifts from white to gray to greenish yellow, a palette only storms know how to paint. The smell changes too. Before the rain, ozone, a sharp metallic scent rising from charged air. After the storm, jasmine, the earthy scent of soil and bacteria awakened by moisture. These are not mere perfumes. They are chemical messages. the storm leaves behind not only wetness, but awareness. The senses remember. Children count the time between lightning and thunder, measuring the miles like invisible rulers. Pets hide beneath beds. Old houses creak in rhythm with the storm, and people pause in doorways, under awnings, behind windows, watching, waiting. There is something about thunder that demands witness. You cannot pretend it is not there. You must acknowledge it. Thunder is not just noise. It is a presence. It changes how we feel, how we move, how we think. For some, it brings anxiety, a reminder of how little we control. For others, it brings peace, a reminder of nature's vastness. And in both, it brings connection to sky, to sound, to time. After the peak of the storm, the thunder begins to fade. The flashes grow less frequent. The intervals between lightning and thunder widen. The rain softens. The air warms. You may hear distant rumbles, like drums retreating over a hill. These are not the storm's farewell, but its memory trailing behind. And then, slowly, the world returns. Birds call. Leaves shake themselves dry. Roads glisten. Puddles gather sky. And the silence after the thunder, that rare, hollow quiet, is filled again with life. Thunder teaches us patience. It cannot be rushed. It speaks on its own schedule, but it always ends. And when it does, the sky seems newer. Not because the clouds have vanished, but because we have heard something rare. The voice of balance. The song of atmosphere. The whisper made loud. You carry that whisper with you. In your breath, in your skin, in the way you listen next time the sky begins to flicker. Thunder leaves behind more than noise. It leaves a space, a pause, a moment to remember. And in that moment, you are closer to the sky than you ever knew. As the storm drifts away, leaving only a faint hush and the shimmer of wet leaves, we begin to reflect on what it means to witness thunder. It is not merely an event of weather, but a ceremony of the sky, one that begins in silence, rises into brilliance, and dissolves again into stillness. To walk beneath a storm is to walk through a breathing story told in pulses of light and echoes of sound. Even after it passes, the memory clings softly to your senses. The scent of ozone, the dampness in the air, the echo of skyward power humming through the ground. In this quiet afterglow, life returns gently. The insects emerge, their wings brushing water from delicate membranes. Birds begin to sing, cautiously at first, testing the air. Even the trees seem to stretch, their trunks glistening, their roots drinking deeply. Rain has washed the dust. From every surface, thunder has shaken the air clean. What remains is clarity, a world rinsed of noise, cradled in calm. And yet, the story of thunder does not end with the storm's departure. It leaves traces, records, written in the air and land. Scientists call these storm remnants anvil cirrus, the wispy plumes of ice that fan out from the tops of storm clouds. These high-altitude feathers linger long after the core of the storm has faded. They drift for hours, sometimes days, slowly unraveling into blue. The earth itself records the storm. Trees struck by lightning carry long, spiral scars down there, bark marks of sudden heat and fierce current. Soil darkened by rainfall dries in patchwork patterns. Stones glisten with water tucked into grooves. Streams run faster, clearer. The pulse of the land quickens, then slows again. Everything has moved and returned, carrying the storm inside it. Animals remember to deer tread cautiously where thunder rolled. Birds shift nests away from broken branches. Even worms rise closer to the surface after heavy rain, drawn by the softened ground and cooled soil. Every living thing adapts to thunder, not by resisting it, but by folding its rhythms into their own. And we, too, remember in our way. Not just through fear or fascination, but through feeling. Thunder shakes something loose inside us, a humility, a reverence, a recognition. We are not above nature, we are within it. The same forces that shape the sky shape our breath, our thoughts, our bones. There are places in the world where thunder never visits: high deserts, polar expanses, arid plains. And there are places where it sings, often tropical forests, humid coastlines, summer plains. But wherever it occurs, thunder belongs not to one place, but to the whole earth. It is a phenomenon born of planetary breath, a sign that the atmosphere is alive, adjusting, remembering. And perhaps that's what thunder really is: memory made sound. A cloud remembering the sun that lifted it, a sky remembering the warmth below, a moment when the imbalance becomes too much to hold, and the heavens must speak it aloud. In this way, thunder is not random, it is response. It is the sound of the world finding its way back to balance, like a sigh after holding breath too long, like a laugh after silence, like a tear after waiting. It may sound fierce, but it is part of healing. There is a beauty in the way storms form and fade. They never stay, they never cling. They rise, speak, release, and pass. And in doing so, they teach us something gentle about change, that even the most electric, rumbling moment will eventually give way to peace, that even power can be graceful, that silence is not the absence of force, but its resting place at night. If you've ever watched lightning dance in the distance, sheet, lightning behind clouds, far away, without sound, you've seen the sky dream. These flashes, called heat lightning, are echoes of storms too far for thunder to reach you. But still, the light finds its way. It plays across the clouds like thoughts too distant to name, but too bright to ignore. Even in sleep, we remember thunder. Some dream of it as roaring beasts, others as the voice of gods. But in each, it remains a sound that enters the body, that rumbles not just in ears, but in bones. Thunder is physical. It lives in the skin, in the chest, in the ground. Beneath your feet, children learn to fear it, then to respect it, then to love it, if they are lucky. To sit by a window during a storm, with a blanket around your shoulders and the scent of rain rising from the earth, is to be in conversation with the planet. The thunder speaks, you listen, and together you wait for the stillness to return. Thunder also calls us together. Families gather in rooms without power. Strangers pause together on porches. Conversations hush, not from fear, but from awe. We do not talk over thunder. We let it finish, and when it does, when the sky grows quiet, when the light softens, when the birds begin again, we breathe differently, deeper, slower, as if some weight we didn't know we carried has lifted. This is the whisper of thunder. It is not just the roar, the flash, the force. It is the silence that follows, the connection it creates, the soft realignment of inner and outer worlds. When next you hear it, let it speak. Don't cover your ears. Don't rush to shelter. Listen, not just with your hearing, but with your presence. Feel how it humbles the trees, quiets the traffic, sharpens the rain. Thunder does not demand obedience. It invites stillness, and when you accept that invitation, you find something rare, a moment not filled by human sound, but by nature's breath. And in that breath, you are reminded you belong to something vast, something rhythmic, something wise. The sky whispers, the ground echoes, and you, standing quietly in between, remember what it means to listen. It begins in silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of stillness. A world paused, a breath held. The sky turns pale, the air sharpens, and something inside the clouds begins to change. High above the trees, above the rooftops and spires, above the warm breath of the earth, the temperature falls low enough for something ancient to return. Tiny crystals begin to form, not randomly, but with intention, with memory. This is snow, born not just from cold, but from a pattern that echoes through time. And in each flake, in each delicate arm of ice, the sky remembers the stars. Snow is not simply frozen rain. It is a creation entirely its own, built slowly in the frozen heights of the troposphere, where the air is cold enough and clean enough for something crystalline to begin. A speck of dust, a grain of pollen, a particle of salt, each one becomes the starting point, the seed. Around it, vapor gathers. Water in its invisible state clings to the tiny core and then freezes. As more vapor lands, the crystal grows, not in a sphere, but in the geometry of hexagons. Why hexagons? It is the shape water molecules choose when they freeze, a shape of symmetry, of balance, of space held evenly in all directions. From this shape, snowflakes are born. 6 arms grow outward, each mirroring the others, shaped by the shifting winds, the temperatures, the humidity of the air it passes through. No 2 flakes are exactly the same, because no 2 paths are ever alike. Each flake is a frozen map of the journey it took through the sky. Imagine a flake beginning its descent. It floats gently, barely falling, caught in the smallest of air currents. The colder the air, the more complex the shape becomes. Branches split, points curl, lacy arms unfold. These flakes are light, delicate, almost without weight. They drift like whispers, like lost feathers, and when they fall to earth, they do not land with a splash, but with a hush, soft as breath, quiet as thought. Snowflakes gather in silence. They layer upon each other, light against light, cold against cold. First a dusting, then a covering, then a deepening hush. The world becomes wrapped in white, not from one thing, but from millions. Each flake a unique creation, each one carrying within it the memory of sky. Snow is not only beautiful, it is a gift of time. It slows the world, it muffles sound, softens edges, brings a kind of stillness that cannot be faked. Under snow, the land sleeps, roots hold their breath, rivers slow beneath sheets of ice, animals burrow deeper, conserving warmth. Even the air changes clearer, cleaner, stripped of dust. A snowfall is not just a weather event, it is a pause. In the coldest places, snow remains for months. It stacks, compresses, and hardens into layers. Over years, these layers become firn, and eventually ice. In glaciers, ancient snow becomes a record of time, holding bubbles of air from centuries ago, storing pollen, ash, even clues of forgotten storms. Scientists drill deep into these frozen archives, reading the climate-like pages of a book, each layer a winter, each winter a story. But in most places, snow is more fleeting. It arrives, transforms the landscape, then melts. And yet, even in its departure, snow remembers. It soaks into soil, feeds the aquifers, fills rivers, becomes the water we drink, the streams we play in, the mist we breathe on spring mornings. Snow's memory does not end when it vanishes. It only changes form. There is a calm that comes with falling snow, a slow, weightless descent that seems to stretch time. Windows frost at the corners, and the scent of cold air carries through every room. The world feels wrapped, not just in snow. That water has seen stars, touched stones, cooled volcanoes, fallen on forests, risen from fields. Snow is not new. At a single flake, before it melts, you will see more than shape. You will see story, a hexagonal dance shaped by temperature and chance. No scientist can predict the exact form of a flake. Too many variables, too many delicate influences. But each one forms true to the laws of physics while still expressing a kind of uniqueness that defies duplication. It is the smell of cold moisture suspended, of clouds preparing to give. People recognize it, even if they cannot name it. Animals do too. Slowly, quietly, the sky opening, not with a roar, but with a hush. Even in cities, snow changes everything. It turns traffic into quiet lines of white. It smooths rooftops, silences footsteps, slows the rush of crowds. Under snow, the world seems to remember itself, not as noise or speed, but as place. A place where every tree wears lace, every shadow softens, every breath becomes visible. The first snow of the year feels different, magical. Children wake to windows filled with white roads vanish. For a day or an hour or even just a moment, the world becomes simple. Light, cold, still, and above it all, the sky continues to create, flake after flake, fall after fall, each one descending like a tiny message, not in words, but in wonder. For snow, like the stars, it remembers, by temperature, time, and light. Though it falls in silence, snow carries a quiet power, not just in its beauty, but in its ability to shape the land, reflect the sun, and transform the rhythms of life, each telling the story of a storm, a wind, a night too cold for rain. Each flake that lands becomes part of this gentle archive, pressed into place by the weight of what follows. A heavy, wet snow clings to branches and bends the world into curves. A light, dry snow swirls like dust, piling in drifts, blowing across roads, whispering against fences. Somewhere in between lies the perfect snow for footsteps, the kind that crunches just enough, that holds the shape of a boot or paw with crisp edges. Every track becomes a story, the wandering path of a rabbit, the steady gait of a fox, the circular prints of children playing. Even after they're gone, the snow remembers. This memory continues beneath the surface. The sharp crystals of fresh flakes break down, changing shape, bonding with neighboring crystals, creating new structures. This process is called metamorphism, snow's quiet transformation. This is how glaciers are born. From snow that stays, that compresses, that holds the cold like breath in a chest that never exhales. Glaciers are snow's long story, not just a season, but an era. They move slowly, carving valleys, smoothing stone, grinding mountains into rivers of ice. Beneath their weight, the earth itself bends. The snow that once fell on high peaks now lies far below as fertile soil, cradling fields and forests. But even in places without glaciers, snow leaves its touch. Recharging aquifers, it brings with it minerals gathered from the sky and soil. Snow is not just a cover, it is a promise, and in its white silence, snow also protects. For many plants and small creatures, snow is insulation. Foxes listen for movement below. Bears sleep beneath the snowy hills, wrapped in earth and dreams. Snow hides life, not to take it away, but to shelter it until warmth returns. Even the light behaves differently in snow. Snow is one of the most reflective surfaces on Earth. Its albedo, or ability to reflect sunlight, is high. This means snow cools the planet simply by being bright. It sends light back to space, softens the sun's heat, slows the melting of ice, is part of balance. As long as the snow remains, the heat is moderated. But when it melts too soon, dark ground or water takes its place, absorbing sunlight, warming faster, melting more snow, a feedback loop that accelerates change. Broken too often, the world begins to tilt. There are people who live their lives closely tied to snow. The Sami of Scandinavia, the Inuit of the Arctic, the Sherpa of the Himalayas. They read snow like others read books, noting its grain, its depth, its behavior. They know how to build with it, move through it, survive because of it. Their knowledge is not just passed through language, but through life, through walking, touching. They begin in layers, a weak layer, buried under heavier snow. When a trigger disturbs the balance, the snow slides, quickly, violently, with immense force. Yet even this destruction is not chaos. It is physics. It is snow remembering its shape, returning to a slope it can hold. Mountaineers, skiers, and scientists study these signals carefully, reading snow like a mood, watching for cracks, for collapses, for signs that the mountain is no longer still. Despite its power, snow invites gentleness. It asks you to move more slowly, to listen more deeply. Footsteps are deliberate. Words feel softer in the air. Snow doesn't rush. It accumulates. It gathers light. It listens. Even the way we speak of snow reflects this. We say it falls, not hits. We say it blankets, not covers. We say it dances, not crashes. Snow is the language of softness, and it inspires imagination. Children build snowmen, snow forts, snow angels, ice palaces in Quebec, snow statues in Sapporo. In stories, snow marks transformation, the start of a journey, the turn of a page, the moment something familiar becomes enchanted. Think of the first snow in a forest, or a village at night, or a city seen from above, quiet, glowing, wrapped in white. It reveals it, and yet snow is delicate. A single degree can change its form. Too warm, and it becomes sleet or rain. Too dry, and it cannot fall. Snow needs conditions just right to exist. In this way, it reminds us of balance, how beauty so often lives on the edge of change. Stand outside during snowfall and open your hand. By air you cannot see, traveling a journey you cannot trace. and yet they land in your palm like a gift, brief, silent, perfect. This is snow's message, that what falls may also lift, that what is cold may also comfort, that what is fleeting may also be remembered. Snow is not just weather. It is a presence, a quiet teacher, a gentle guest. It does not ask for anything, only to be noticed before it melts. And in noticing, we remember that even the smallest things, a flake, a breeze, a breath of frozen air, can hold the weight of the sky. As winter deepens and the snow settles into stillness, the world beneath it changes in silence. Beneath every white field and forest path, roots rest in darkness. Seeds sleep without knowing the shape of spring, and tiny creatures move through tunnels of packed snow, warmed by breath and body. Snow, for all its chill, becomes a shelter, a hidden world just beneath the surface, where warmth is held close and time passes differently. At night, the snow glows softly under the moon, reflecting even the faintest silver of starlight. You can walk through a forest at midnight and see your path clearly, the snow lighting the way with its quiet brilliance. Your footsteps crunch, a crisp sound that echoes gently between the trees. Every branch wears white lace. Snow connects the heavens to the ground in silence and reflection. In that glow, even the stars feel closer, and snow remembers the stars in more than metaphor. The hydrogen and oxygen that make each snowflake were forged in ancient suns long ago. Before the earth was formed, before oceans rose or air filled the skies, each flake carries that origin, frozen in a lattice of geometry older than any human hand. When you hold snow in your hand, you are holding the touch of stars, reshaped by sky and gravity, carried down to your skin by wind and time. The flakes that fall today are cousins of those that fell on the mammoths, the great forests of old, the first footprints of people who walked wrapped in fur. Those early humans looked to snow with reverence and survival in mind, reading the skies, the texture of drifts, the signs left behind by animals. Their lives moved with the seasons, shaped by the cold. Snow was not an inconvenience. It was the world's way of asking for patience, and snow demands a kind of humility. It cannot be rushed or bent to will. And in surrendering to snow, in slowing down, in sitting still, in listening, we rediscover a gentler pace. There's a calm that settles into places where snow lasts. Days grow quieter, tasks become more deliberate. The morning involves not only waking, but bundling, preparing, layering warmth against cold. Even light takes its time. Sunrises stretch longer, golden against blue. Afternoons glow softly. Evenings arrive early, inviting candles, tea, silence. Snow shifts the rhythms of life inwards, toward warmth, reflection, paintings, poems, lullabies. All of them find inspiration in the drift, the hush, the quiet strength of winter's soft fall. Even memory works differently in the snow. Moments feel clearer, suspended in the stillness. No matter how deep or wide, does not remain forever. Slowly, with light and warmth, it begins to change. Fields darken under retreating white. Water runs in trickles at first, then streams. And with that melt comes movement. Seeds begin to stir. Insects awaken. Roots drink deeply. What once covered the land now feeds it. This cycle, fall, settle, melt, feed, is snow's true story. It is not simply decoration, it is function. It is memory transformed into nourishment. The meltwaters carry not only hydration, but history, gathered from air and sky, layered through weeks and months. What falls as snow returns as life, and snow teaches us to see beauty in the temporary. Its forms are never permanent, yet they are never rushed. A snowflake's life, from cloud to ground to water, may last moments, but within that moment is complete expression. It does not cling, it does not mourn its melting. It exists fully, then moves on. Perhaps this is why snow quiets our hearts. It reminds us of impermanence, not as loss, but as rhythm. Everything changes, everything returns. This gently, without explanation, without demand. Some say snow is nature's silence, but in truth, it is full of voices. The chirp of birds testing the thaw, the crunch of boots on packed powder. Even the quietest snowfall sings in texture and tone. You do not need words to hear it. You only need to be still. And in that stillness, snow offers clarity. Things once hidden become visible. Tracks in the snow reveal the life of the forest. Where deer walked, where foxes paused, where owls landed. Even your own footprints remind you of where you've been, how you've moved through the world. Snow invites presence. It records truth. It asks you to notice. When the final snow of the season falls, it carries with it a kind of goodbye. Not loud, not mournful, just the quiet departure of something that never planned to stay. It falls one last time on rooftops and trees, on riverbanks and fences. It rests, melts, and gives way. And in doing so, it leaves behind more than water. It leaves the memory of wonder. And though it may be months before snow returns, the memory lingers in the shape of a cloud, in the scent of chilled air, in the light that returns to the landscape, brighter after white. When you see snow again, whether through a window or beneath a night sky, let it remind you of stars, of silence, of softness. Let it slow you down, even if just for a moment. Let it fill your breath with cold and your eyes with light, because snow does not shout, but it leaves behind something that lasts longer than shape. It leaves behind the memory of stillness, and in that stillness, across rooftops, pours gently over fields and forests. You may not notice it at first, the way it brushes the floor, the way it turns shadows soft, the way it wakes the leaves with gold. But in that quiet light, something more is traveling, something ancient, powerful, and unseen. For within every beam of sunlight, hidden beneath the glow, rides heat. And this heat is not loud or burning. It is gentle, constant, the warmth that cradles our world. This is the heat that hides in light. It begins far away, in the heart of the sun, a furnace of unimaginable fire, where hydrogen fuses into helium and energy is released in a dance older than memory. Deep in the sun's core, light is born, not as a soft glow, but as gamma rays, fierce and fast. These particles of energy begin their long journey outward until they reach the surface of the sun and leap into space. By the time that light arrives at Earth, 8 minutes after leaving the sun, it has softened into visible light, ultraviolet rays, and infrared warmth. You see it in color, you feel it on your skin, but even what you cannot see is their heat, wrapped in waves. It brings life, The warmth it delivers powers winds, moves oceans, grows forests, and drives the cycles of every living thing. Without the sun's light, the planet would be frozen, silent, still. With it, the earth becomes a garden, and yet, the heat within light is quiet. It does not crack or hiss. It does not demand. It seeps into stone, lingers on skin, warms the backs of birds. It hides in the soil, in the air, in the spaces between things. It turns dew to mist. It lifts seeds from sleep. It follows light, but it is not light. It is energy moving in gentle waves, radiating, absorbed, re-emitted in silence. When you feel the sun on your face, you are feeling infrared radiation, waves just beyond what your eyes can see. These rays do not shine, but they touch. They warm without flame. They pass through air, water, even glass. They do not knock, but they enter slowly, steadily. On a winter's day, they make a windowsill warm. On a summer road, they heat the pavement long after the sun has set. The earth absorbs this heat unevenly. This unevenness is what drives the weather. Warm air rising, cool air flowing in. Storms, breezes, clouds, all born from heat moving through the sky. By the atmosphere, by the land, by life itself. Plants use it to split water, build sugars, grow leaves. Animals soak it into their skin, warming blood and muscle. Even the coldest parts of the world receive a low sun grazing, a snowy horizon, barely warming the air, but still keeping life possible. This balance between heat arriving and heat leaving is delicate. If too much escapes, the world cools. If too much stays, it warms. The thin veil of gases around the earth, the atmosphere, acts as a blanket, holding just enough warmth to keep oceans liquid, winds moving, roots growing. This blanket is made of molecules that know how to listen to light, carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor. They absorb heat, then release it gently, keeping the night from turning to cold. But when this balance is disturbed, when more gases hold more heat, the world changes. Glaciers retreat, oceans rise, storms shift, and yet the sun has not grown hotter. It is the Earth's response that changes the way it holds, reflects. Step into sunlight, and your skin responds. Blood vessels widen, warmth spreads, vitamin D begins to form, muscles relax. There is a reason we turn our faces toward the sun. Somewhere deep inside, our cells remember the light. And not just sunlight. All light carries heat, even the soft glow of a candle, the steady burn of a lamp, the hum of an electric bulb. The hotter the light, the more energy it carries. Blue light is hotter than red. Ultraviolet is hotter still. But heat is not only about temperature. It is about transfer. It is about movement. Heat flows from warm to cool, from high to low, like a river seeking the sea. Think of how a rock feels warm after a day in the sun, or how sand holds heat even after dusk. That is infrared energy, stored and released slowly, like breath. It hides in surfaces, in pockets of air, in the spaces between bricks. At night, cities release the heat they held all day, and this too shapes the air, making nights warmer, winds softer, fogs thicker. Even moonlight is borrowed warmth, sunlight reflected off the lunar surface, softened by distance, but still part of the same journey. Light travels far, but heat, once here, stays close. It wraps around us, invisible and constant, like a song we can only feel. And this song moves through everything. A leaf warming in spring, a glacier melting from below, a breeze rising off the road, a cat curled in a sunbeam. The heat in light is not just physics, it is presence, it is story. It is the Earth's way of holding the sun's memory in the deepest oceans. Where no sunlight reaches, creatures still rely on the heat that seeps from within the earth, a different warmth, born of pressure and depth. But even there, the cycles of surface heat ripple downward in seasons, in currents, in the subtle breath of tides. Light may fade, but its energy echoes. And so, every day, as the sun rises, it does more than light the world. It warms it, not with fire, but with waves, not with noise, but with motion. The warmth is already here, moving across skin, sliding into stone, rising from roofs. It does not knock, but it enters. This is the heat that hides in light, quiet, faithful, radiant. It asks nothing. It simply gives. Let us now step into the deeper layers of warmth, into the ways heat, born of light, weaves through the planet like an invisible thread. Though it travels in silence, heat shapes everything. It rises in columns above dark soil. It moves in slow tides beneath ocean surfaces. It curls inside clouds and breathes through the bark of trees. It is the quiet energy that feeds storms, nourishes roots, and tells the earth when to wake or rest. And always it begins with light, not just the light we see, but the fuller spectrum that surrounds us, touching every surface, whether we notice or not. Heat moves in three ways: radiation, conduction, and convection. Radiation is the heat we feel from the sun, traveling through space without a medium, carried by light itself. It does not need air or water or touch. It comes straight from the sun to your cheek, to your garden, to the ocean's skin. Conduction is the movement of heat through touch, the warmth that travels from a hot stone to your fingers, from sun-warmed pavement to bare feet. Convection is the motion of heat carried by fluid, the rising of warm air, the swirling of currents in boiling water, the transfer of warmth from one layer to another through movement. On a summer morning, all three forms of heat are at play. The sun radiates energy across the sky. That energy strikes the ground, is conducted into the soil, then rises through convection as the air warms. It may seem simple, but this dance creates everything we know as weather. Clouds are born from rising warmth. Even the tides of the sea, though ruled by the moon, feel the influence of light's hidden heat. Oceans are vast collectors of this energy. Sunlight penetrates only the upper layers, the top 100 meters or so. But in that skin of the sea, warmth gathers, stores, and moves. The sun's energy heats the surface water, which in turn fuels currents, wind patterns, and the great conveyor belts of temperature that encircle the globe. These currents, like the Gulf Stream or the Kuroshio, carry heat from the equator to the poles, balancing the planet's breath. The oceans do not heat evenly. Some regions, warmed more than others, release their warmth back into the air, changing wind, shaping clouds, even altering rainfall. In years when these patterns shift during El Niño or La Niña events, whole continents feel the change. Droughts deepen, floods rise, storms strengthen, all from small changes in how the heat of light moves through water. The land, too, holds this heat differently. Forests absorb more warmth than grasslands. Wet soil holds heat better than dry. Urban areas, with their asphalt, glass, and metal, gather warmth quickly and release it slowly, creating heat islands where temperatures stay high even after the sun sets. Walk through a city at night and you will feel it, the breath of stone, the whisper of stored sunlight rising from sidewalks and walls. Plants respond to this hidden heat in intricate ways. As light touches their leaves, they open their stomata, tiny pores that breathe in carbon dioxide and release water vapor. This process, called transpiration, cools the plant while driving photosynthesis. But it is delicate. Too much heat, and the plant will close its pores to conserve water, slowing growth. Too little, and the energy to build sugars fades. Every leaf negotiates with the sun, balancing warmth and survival. Animals do the same. Reptiles bask in morning light, soaking heat into their blood. Mammals seek sun to wake, shade to rest. Even humans follow the heat. We open windows in the morning, close them at midday. We wear light colors to reflect, dark colors to absorb. Our homes are built to catch or block the sun, depending on what season we're trying to soften. And always, our skin knows the difference between shadow and sun. But heat doesn't only live in large movements. It lives in the microclimates of daily life. The warmth between two joined hands, the patch of sunlight on a chair, the gentle rise of steam from a cup of tea. These are moments of heat transfer, tiny expressions of light's memory. They pass between objects, between bodies, quietly and constantly. When you sit near a fire or under a warm blanket, you're feeling not only current heat, but the energy of another time, another transformation, and heat leaves clues. Look at the shimmer above a road in summer that is light bending through rising air. Heat causes molecules to move faster, which in turn changes how light travels. This phenomenon, called a mirage, tricks the eyes with illusions of water or distance. But it is not false. It is a visible record of invisible heat. Even the wind carries temperature. Stand on a beach at sunset, and you'll feel a sea breeze, cool air moving in as the land cools faster than the water. This simple difference in how surfaces hold and release heat creates movement felt miles inland. At night, this reverses. Land warms the air above it more than water, sending winds gently seaward. These diurnal rhythms are the breath of the planet, paced by the heat that hides in light. In architecture, heat guides design. Homes in hot regions use white walls and narrow windows to reflect sunlight. In colder climates, homes are built to catch the low sun and hold warmth with thick insulation and southern-facing glass. Passive solar heating, the practice of designing spaces to gather light's warmth naturally, is an old wisdom renewed by modern need. Even in silence, buildings become instruments for catching and holding light, and light, in turn, changes with angle. In winter, it comes in low, casting long shadows, warming less. In summer, it falls more directly, delivering more heat per square inch. This simple shift, caused by the Earth's tilt, shapes the seasons, stirs migrations, changes how plants grow, and how people live. All from the changing reach of heat through light. In deserts, the sun's heat is both lifeline and test. During the day, surfaces scorch, but at night, with no clouds to trap the warmth, temperatures plunge. This daily swing is vast, tens of degrees in hours. Desert creatures adapt in kind. Nocturnal habits, burrowed homes, light-reflecting shells. The heat that hides in light becomes a rhythm of survival. In polar regions, the absence of heat is more telling. During long winters, when sunlight barely grazes the horizon, the cold deepens. But the return of the sun, even for a few hours, begins to shift everything. Snow starts to soften, ice begins to melt. Plants peek from frozen ground. The smallest warmth, carried in the faintest light, is enough to remind life that movement is possible. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of heat. It is not only energy, it is invitation. It tells things to grow, to rise, to wake. Without it, atoms slow, water freezes, motion stills. With it, life stirs. From the tiniest cell to the tallest storm, heat is what allows things to become, and always. It arrives in light, not with fanfare, but with persistence. It gathers in quiet, spreads in silence, and gives without end. And now, as we follow the warmth to its resting place, we begin to see how deeply it shapes the rhythm of life, not through force, but through continuity. The heat that rides in light does not simply pass through the world. It lingers, it transforms, it remembers. It moves through forests and oceans, cities and skin, always tracing the outlines of change. It does not stay still. It cannot. Heat flows always, from what holds more to what holds less, not out of urgency, but out of nature's quiet need for balance. As evening falls, you can feel this balance shifting. The sun dips low, its light turning amber, softer, longer in shadow. The warmth you felt on your skin during midday now begins to lift, to rise back into the air. Pavement still radiates heat. The roof of your home exhales. Trees release the day's stored energy into the breeze. Even the walls of your room, touched by sun for hours, offer their warmth back slowly, a tender goodbye to the day. This is radiative cooling, the gradual return of energy from surface to sky. The earth is constantly exchanging heat with the cosmos. At night, in the absence of sunlight, it becomes a source, not a receiver. It sends waves of energy outward through the atmosphere into the cold silence of space. Without the blanket of greenhouse gases, this heat would vanish too quickly. But because the earth has learned to hold, to release, to share, the balance holds, even as it shifts. In places with clear skies and dry air, the nights grow much colder. Without moisture or cloud to reflect heat downward, the warmth escapes. This is why deserts are hot by day and cold by night. And it's why cloudy nights are often warmer than clear ones. The clouds catch the escaping warmth, sending part of it back, holding the earth's breath a little longer. People have always noticed these patterns. Ancient builders designed homes with thick walls of clay or stone, materials that soak in heat by day and give it back by night. These homes needed no wires, no circuits, only wisdom. Even now, modern engineers return to these old lessons, crafting buildings that hold warmth without machines, that listen to the light and share it wisely. Plants, to measure their lives by warmth. Seeds sense when the soil reaches a certain temperature and begin to sprout. Leaves unfold only when light has been steady and strong. Flowers track the sun across the sky, a movement called heliotropism, following the heat like a compass. Trees prepare for dormancy when daylight shortens and warmth fades. This is not just instinct, it is a conversation with energy carried out in cycles of light and heat. Animals follow this conversation too. Birds migrate along sun-warmed paths. Bears hibernate when the warmth of light can no longer sustain enough food. Amphibians retreat into cool mud. Insects emerge only when the soil warms enough to invite them. Their bodies do not guess. They know because they live within the pulse of heat. Even humans are guided by it, often more than we admit. We wake more easily with the sun. We slow down in deep winter. We gather in warmth, seek light when we feel low, retreat when days grow dark. The seasonal movement of heat, its slow return, its slow retreat, affects not only our calendars, but our moods, our rhythms, even our dreams. In the cold, we light fires. A campfire is not just heat, but memory made visible, stored sunlight from years past, now returning as warmth and flame. Wood is a record of photosynthesis, of light turned into sugar, into tree, into fuel. When we burn it, we release that history, and in the flicker of flame, we gather, tell stories, feel safe. We do not always realize that what we're watching is time turned into light again. Modern technologies have found countless ways to harvest this heat. Solar panels convert sunlight into electricity. Thermal systems store warmth in water or stone. Greenhouses trap sunlight to grow tomatoes in winter. Even passive solar architecture, using windows, floors, and walls, gathers the sun's heat without wires. These are not inventions, they are invitations. Invitations to listen more closely to what the sun has always offered. But not all heat is gentle. As the earth warms, we feel the strain of imbalance. Longer summers, intense droughts, melting glaciers, rising seas. This is not new heat. It is familiar heat, held too long, trapped too deeply, reflected too little. The gases that once kept us safe now hold too much, tipping the scales. The energy is the same. The holding is different. Yet even now, heat can guide healing. Understanding how warmth moves through air, water, soil allows us to plan better, build wiser, conserve more. Knowing how the sun's light touches different surfaces teaches us how to reflect what we must, absorb what we need. The same energy that causes harm can, with care, create life. And through it all, light continues to arrive. Each morning, the same sun rises. Each day, photons travel millions of miles to touch your skin, warm your home, spark your cells. It is not a grand gesture. It is a gift repeated over and over, without end. You may not see the heat. You may not name it, but you know it. You feel it in the steam from your tea, in the warm spot on a windowsill, in the slow defrosting of a morning windshield. You feel it in the breeze off a lake, in the heat rising from a sunlit trail. It is everywhere if you pay attention. A quiet warmth carried not only through flame or fire, but through light itself. In a forest at dawn, the dew begins to lift. In a city at dusk, the buildings soften into warmth. In a desert at night, the stones release their stored glow. These are not random moments. They are signatures of heat passing through light, of energy becoming life, of the earth breathing through temperature. And when the day ends and the stars return, the warmth does not vanish. It is held in walls, in oceans, in skin. It rests, waiting to move again. Because light is not the only story. Heat is its companion, its whisper, its lasting echo. So when you step into the sunlight, pause, let it touch your face, let it enter your bones. Know that what you feel is more than brightness. It is the sun's memory, delivered through space, passed through sky, caught in your skin. You are not just bathed in light, you are cradled in warmth that has traveled millions of miles to reach you. And in that warmth, you are reminded you belong to the pattern, to the flow, to the rhythm of energy that touches all things. You are held by the heat that hides in light, and it will never forget you. Let us now step into the deeper layers of warmth, into the ways heat, born of light, weaves through the planet like an invisible thread. Though it travels in silence, heat shapes everything. It rises in columns above dark soil. It moves in slow tides beneath ocean surfaces. It curls inside clouds and breathes through the bark of trees. It is the quiet energy that feeds storms, nourishes roots, and tells the earth when to wake or rest. And always, it begins with light, not just the light we see, but the fuller spectrum that surrounds us, touching every surface, whether we notice or not. Heat moves in three ways: radiation, conduction, and convection. Radiation is the heat we feel from the sun, traveling through space without a medium, carried by light itself. It does not need air or water or touch. It comes straight from the sun to your cheek, to your garden, to the ocean's skin. Conduction is the movement of heat through touch, the warmth that travels from a hot stone to your fingers, from sun-warmed pavement to bare feet. Convection is the motion of heat carried by fluid, the rising of warm air, the swirling of currents in boiling water, the transfer of warmth from one layer to another through movement. All three forms of heat are at play. The sun radiates energy across the sky. That energy strikes the ground, is conducted into the soil, then rises through convection as the air warms. It may seem simple, but this dance creates everything we know as weather. Clouds are born from rising warmth. Winds are sculpted by uneven heating. Even the tides of the sea, though ruled by the moon, feel the influence of light's hidden heat. Oceans are vast collectors of this energy. Sunlight penetrates only the upper layers, the top 100 meters or so. But in that skin of the sea, warmth gathers, stores, and moves. The sun's energy heats the surface water, which in turn fuels currents, wind patterns, and the great conveyor belts of temperature that encircle the globe. These currents, like the Gulf Stream or the Kuroshio, carry heat from the equator to the poles, balancing the planet's breath. The oceans do not heat evenly. Some regions, warmed more than others, release their warmth back into the air, changing wind, shaping clouds, even altering rainfall. In years when these patterns shift, during El Niño or La Niña events, whole continents feel the change. Droughts deepen, floods rise, storms strengthen, all from small changes in how the heat of light moves through water. The land, too, holds this heat differently. Forests absorb more warmth than grasslands. Wet soil holds heat better than dry. Urban areas, with their asphalt, glass, and metal, gather warmth quickly and release it slowly, creating heat islands where temperatures stay high even after the sun sets. Walk through a city at night, and you will feel it, the breath of stone, the whisper of stored sunlight rising from sidewalks and walls, Plants respond to this hidden heat in intricate ways. As light touches their leaves, they open their stomata, tiny pores that breathe in carbon dioxide and release water vapor. This process, called transpiration, cools the plant while driving photosynthesis, but it is delicate. Too much heat, and the plant will close its pores to conserve water, slowing growth. Too little, and the energy to build sugars fades. Every leaf negotiates with the sun, balancing warmth and survival. Animals do the same. Reptiles bask in morning light, soaking heat into their blood. Mammals seek sun to wake, shade to rest. Even humans follow the heat. We open windows in the morning, close them at midday. We wear light colors to reflect dark, colors to absorb. Our homes are built to catch or block the sun, depending on what season we're trying to soften. And always, our skin knows the difference between shadow and sun. But heat doesn't only live in large movements. It lives in the microclimates of daily life. The warmth between two joined hands, the patch of sunlight on a chair, the gentle rise of steam from a cup of tea. These are moments of heat transfer, tiny expressions of light's memory. They pass between objects, between bodies, quietly and constantly. When you sit near a fire or under a warm blanket, you're feeling not only current heat, but the held energy of another time, another transformation, and heat leaves clues. Look at the shimmer above a road in summer that is light bending through rising air. Heat causes molecules to move faster, which in turn changes how light travels. This phenomenon, called a mirage, tricks the eyes with illusions of water or distance, but it is not false. It is a visible record of invisible heat. Even the wind carries temperature. Stand on a beach at sunset, and you'll feel a sea breeze, cool air moving in as the land cools faster than the water. This simple difference in how surfaces hold and release heat creates movement felt miles inland. At night, this reverses. Land warms the air above it more than water, sending winds gently seaward. These diurnal rhythms are the breath of the planet, paced by the heat that hides in light. In architecture, heat guides design. Homes in hot regions use white walls and narrow windows to reflect sunlight. In colder climates, homes are built to catch the low sun and hold warmth with thick insulation and southern-facing glass. Passive solar heating, the practice of designing spaces to gather light's warmth naturally, is an old wisdom renewed by modern need. Even in silence, buildings become instruments for catching and holding light, and light, in turn, changes with angle. In winter, it comes in low, casting long shadows, warming less. In summer, it falls more directly, delivering more heat per square inch. This simple shift, caused by the Earth's tilt, shapes the seasons, stirs migrations, changes how plants grow and how people live, all from the changing reach of heat through light. In deserts, the sun's heat is both lifeline and test. During the day, surfaces scorch, but at night, with no clouds to trap the warmth, temperatures plunge. This daily swing is vast, tens of degrees in hours. Desert creatures adapt in kind. Nocturnal habits, burrowed homes, light-reflecting shells. The heat that hides in light becomes a rhythm of survival. In polar regions, the absence of heat is more telling. During long winters, when sunlight barely grazes the horizon, the cold deepens. But the return of the sun, even for a few hours, begins to shift everything. Snow starts to soften, ice begins to melt, plants peek from frozen ground. The smallest warmth, carried in the faintest light, is enough to remind life that movement is possible. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of heat. It is not only energy, it is invitation. It tells things to grow, to rise, to wake. Without it, atoms slow, water freezes, motion stills. With it, life stirs. From the tiniest cell to the tallest storm, heat is what allows things to become, and always. It arrives in light, not with fanfare, but with persistence. It gathers in quiet, spreads in silence, and gives without end. Now, as we follow the warmth to its resting place, we begin to see how deeply it shapes the rhythm of life, not through force, but through continuity. The heat that rides in light does not simply pass through the world. It lingers, it transforms, it remembers. It moves through forests and oceans, cities and skin, always tracing the outlines of change. It does not stay still. It cannot. Heat flows always from what holds more to what holds less, not out of urgency, but out of nature's quiet need for balance. As evening falls, you can feel this balance shifting. The sun dips low, its light turning amber, softer, longer in shadow. The warmth you felt on your skin during midday now begins to lift, to rise back into the air. Pavement still radiates heat. The roof of your home exhales. Trees release the day's stored energy into the breeze. Even the walls of your room, touched by sun for hours, offer their warmth back slowly, a tender goodbye to the day. This is radiative cooling, the gradual return of energy from surface to sky. The earth is constantly exchanging heat with the cosmos. At night, in the absence of sunlight, it becomes a source, not a receiver. It sends waves of energy outward through the atmosphere into the cold silence of space. Without the blanket of greenhouse gases, this heat would vanish too quickly. But because the earth has learned to hold, to release, to share, the balance holds, even as it shifts. In places with clear skies and dry air, the nights grow much colder. Without moisture or cloud to reflect heat downward, the warmth escapes. This is why deserts are hot by day and cold by night. And it's why cloudy nights are often warmer than clear ones. The clouds catch the escaping warmth, sending part of it back, holding the earth's breath a little longer. People have always noticed these patterns. Ancient builders designed homes with thick walls of clay or stone materials that soak in heat by day and give it back by night. These homes needed no wires, no circuits, only wisdom. Even now, modern engineers return to these old lessons, crafting buildings that hold warmth without machines, that listen to the light and share it wisely. Plants to measure their lives by warmth. Seeds sense when the soil reaches a certain temperature and begin to sprout. Leaves unfold only when light has been steady and strong. Flowers track the sun across the sky, a movement called heliotropism, following the heat like a compass. Trees prepare for dormancy when daylight shortens and warmth fades. This is not just instinct. It is a conversation with energy carried out in cycles of light and heat. Animals follow this conversation too. Birds migrate along sun-warmed paths. Bears hibernate when the warmth of light can no longer sustain enough food. Amphibians retreat into cool mud. Insects emerge only when the soil warms enough to invite them. Their bodies do not guess. They know because they live within the pulse of heat. Even humans are guided by it, often more than we admit. We wake more easily with the sun. We slow down in deep winter. We gather in warmth, seek light when we feel low, retreat when days grow dark. The seasonal movement of heat, its slow return, its slow retreat, affects not only our calendars, but our moods, our rhythms, even our dreams. In the cold, we light fires. A campfire is not just heat, but memory made visible, stored sunlight from years past, now returning as warmth and flame. Wood is a record of photosynthesis, of light turned into sugar, into tree, into fuel. When we burn it, we release that history, and in the flicker of flame, we gather, tell stories, feel safe. We do not always realize that what we're watching is time turned into light again. Modern technologies have found countless ways to harvest this heat. Solar panels convert sunlight into electricity. Thermal systems store warmth in water or stone. Greenhouses trap sunlight to grow tomatoes in winter. Even passive solar architecture, using windows, floors, and walls, gathers the sun's heat without wires. These are not inventions. They are invitations. Invitations to listen more closely to what the sun has always offered. But not all heat is gentle. As the earth warms, we feel the strain of imbalance. Longer summers, intense droughts, melting glaciers, rising seas. This is not new heat. It is familiar heat held too long, trapped too deeply, reflected too little. The gases that once kept us safe now hold too much, tipping the scales. The energy is the same. The holding is different. Yet even now, heat can guide healing. Understanding how warmth moves through air, water, soil allows us to plant better, build wiser, conserve more. Knowing how the sun's light touches different surfaces teaches us how to reflect what we must, absorb what we need. The same energy that causes harm can, with care, create life. And through it all, light continues to arrive. Each morning, the same sun rises. Each day, photons travel millions of miles to touch your skin, warm your home, spark your cells. It is not a grand gesture. It is a gift repeated over and over, without end. You may not see the heat. You may not name it, but you know it. You feel it in the steam from your tea, in the warm spot on a windowsill, in the slow defrosting of a morning windshield. You feel it in the breeze off a lake, in the heat rising from a sunlit trail. It is everywhere, if you pay attention, a quiet warmth carried not only through flame or fire, but through light itself. In a forest at dawn, the dew begins to lift. In a city at dusk, the buildings soften into warmth. In a desert at night, the stones release their stored glow. These are not random moments. They are signatures of heat passing through light, of energy becoming life, of the earth breathing through temperature. And when the day ends and the stars return, the warmth does not vanish. It is held in walls, in oceans, in skin. It rests, waiting to move again, because light is not the only story. Heat is its companion, its whisper, its lasting echo. So when you step into the sunlight, pause. Let it touch your face. Let it enter your bones. Know that what you feel is more than brightness. It is the sun's memory, delivered through space, passed through sky, caught in your skin. You are not just bathed in light. You are cradled in warmth that has traveled millions of miles to reach you. And in that warmth, you are reminded you belong to the pattern, to the flow, to the rhythm of energy that touches all things. You are held by the heat that hides in light, and it will never forget you. There are currents in the sky, older than the oldest rivers, longer than the longest roads, and quieter than even the softest breath. You cannot see them, but you feel them on your face. Hear them in the trees. Watch them bend fields of grass and lift the wings of birds. These are the winds, vast, invisible rivers of moving air that circle the earth in endless, patient flow. They rise with the sun, sleep with the moon, shift with the seasons, and carry with them the scents of forests, the seeds of flowers, the salt of distant seas. These are the winds that carry the world. It begins with sunlight. The sun warms the earth unevenly, striking the equator more directly than the poles. Land heats faster than water. Mountains catch the light before valleys do. Where heat gathers, air expands and rises. Where the air cools, it sinks. This simple dance, warm air rising, cool air falling, sets the atmosphere in motion. And motion, held long enough, becomes wind.air, though light and clear, has weight. Billions of tiny molecules push and pull, create pressure, and respond. To heat like water responds to gravity. When high pressure builds in one place and low pressure settles in another, air moves to even the difference. What we call wind is this movement, the Earth's breath seeking balance near the equator. The sun's warmth creates a band of rising air called the intertropical convergence zone. Here, trade winds from the north and south meet, push upward, and feed towering clouds. This rising air flows toward the poles high above the ground, cooling as it travels, then sinking around 30 degrees latitude to form the subtropical highs. This is where deserts often lie, beneath skies of descending, dry air. The cycle continues as that air returns to the equator at the surface, creating the trade winds, reliable, steady, the ancient companions of sailors farther from the equator. Between 30 and 60 degrees latitude, the westerlies take shape. Winds that blow from the west toward the east, curving due to the Coriolis effect, which bends moving air due to the Earth's rotation. Closer to the poles, the polar easterlies blow cold air back toward the equator. These great bands of wind encircle the globe, forming a complex, beautiful system that moves moisture, temperature, and momentum across continents and seas. But winds are not only global, they are also local, born of nearby contrast. A lake breeze drifts inland as water stays cool and land warms quickly. A mountain breeze flows down as night cools the peaks faster than the valleys. In the morning, the process reverses. These small winds, valley breezes, sea breezes, anabatic winds, katabatic winds, shape weather, climate, and life in subtle, powerful ways. And within these patterns are jet streams, narrow bands of fast-moving air, thousands of kilometers long, but only a few kilometers thick. Jet streams form near the boundaries of air masses with different temperatures, especially near the polar and subtropical regions. Their winds can reach over 200 miles per hour. Airplanes ride them to save fuel. Storms follow their path. Seasons shift when they wander. Though silent to those on the ground, jet streams steer the very shape of the sky. Wind, in all its forms, is a carrier. It carries not just air, but energy, sound, scent, and life. It carries pollen across meadows, dust from deserts across oceans, seeds into cracks and crevices where they root and grow. It carries the songs of whales and wolves, the call of birds, the hum of cities. It picks up warmth from sunlit soil, coolness from the sea, and mixes them into weather. In deserts, wind carves sand into waves, shaping dunes that walk slowly across the land. In mountains, it sculpts snow into smooth ridges and sharp cornices. On coastlines, it builds breakers, crashes waves, lifts salt spray high into the air. In forests, it dances with leaves, rocks, branches, and carries the scent of pine and moss. For miles, even in the stillness between gusts, the wind is not gone. It is only waiting, shifting its shape. You know wind by its voice. The howl through a window pane, the rustle in tall grass, the hush through a canyon, the roar at the summit. Each landscape teaches the wind a different language. In the high plains, it sings wide and flat. In the city, it bends around corners and slips between walls. Over oceans, it glides steady and strong, riding ripples onto the sea's surface. Wind also holds temperature. A warm breeze from the south can bring the promise of spring. A cold wind from the north can darken a sunny afternoon. The wind chill we feel is not just about temperature. It's how fast the heat leaves our skin. Moving air takes warmth with it, gently or sharply, reminding us that we are not separate from the atmosphere, but part of its exchange. Birds know the wind better than we do. They ride thermals, rising columns of warm air to save energy. During long flights, albatrosses soar for days without flapping, letting the wind do the work. Even small birds adjust their flight by feeling the pressure on their wings. To them, the sky is not empty. It is a landscape of currents, always moving, always alive. People have followed the wind since long before maps. The trade winds carried explorers to new continents. Monsoon winds shaped the rhythms of agriculture and culture across Asia and Africa. Wind determined the routes of ships, the timing of journeys, the outcomes of wars. Even now, wind powers turbines, fills sails, cools cities, turns the blades of ancient mills that once ground grain into bread. Yet wind, for all its movement, brings stillness to a breeze on a hot day can feel like kindness. A gust during snowfall can change silence into song. Wind in a forest makes the trees speak. It carries change gently, touches all things briefly, and then moves on. Stand on a high hill and face the wind. Close your eyes. Feel how it wraps around your shoulders, how it lifts your hair, how it hums through your bones. You are not standing alone. You are standing inside a current that connects continents, that has touched mountain peaks and ocean waves, that has seen more of the world than any traveler ever could. This is the wind that carries the world, and it carries you to in breath, in memory, in motion. Let us now journey deeper into the heart of wind, not just its motion, but its meaning. Though invisible wind is one of the Earth's oldest storytellers, it moves through time as easily as it moves through space. It remembers mountains that no longer stand, oceans that once covered deserts, forests that have long since turned. Two-stone wind carries the past with it, gathering fragments from every place it touches, blending them into whispers that brush against your skin, pass through trees, scatter petals, and unsettle still waters. It is both ancient and immediate, gentle and wild, constant and always changing. Wind arises from imbalance, and in doing so, it works to restore balance. Heat from the sun creates differences in temperature and pressure across the planet. These differences become tension in the air, and the wind is that tension's release. It does not solve the imbalance with violence, but with flow, movement from full to empty, from warm to cool, from high to low. This flow, subtle or strong, is what keeps weather alive. The wind is not a disruptor, it is a balancer, and the world breathes through its rhythms. Across the open ocean, wind drives the waves. Not all at once, but slowly, steadily, building, ripple upon ripple, until they become swells that travel for hundreds of miles. These swells reach distant shores long after the wind has passed, carrying the memory of storms with them. Surfers read these waves like scripture. Fishermen know them by feel. Sailors follow their curve. Wind shapes the sea, not by force alone, but by touch, by repetition, by time, in the high atmosphere. The jet streams carve invisible paths that steer storm systems, separating cold and warm air masses, driving fronts that bring rain, snow, or sun. These rivers of air travel tens of thousands of miles, shifting with the seasons, responding to the Earth's rotation and the warmth of the oceans below. When the jet stream dips or splits, it can bring unusual cold to warm places, drought to green lands, or sudden storms to quiet regions. And though we cannot see it, this high wind paints the sky we live beneath, closer to the ground. Wind follows the contours of the land. Hills deflect it, valleys funnel it, forests break it into eddies. Cities scatter it into chaos between buildings, down alleys, across rooftops. Urban wind becomes an intricate dance of pressure and pause, heat and shadow, glass and stone. A single gust in a city can rise from a park, slip down a street, twist around a tower, and vanish its journey, shaped by architecture as much as by atmosphere. On the plains, wind has space to run. It builds strength without interruption, sweeping grasses in great waves, pushing clouds across the horizon, rattling fences, turning turbines. These wide, open winds carry dust and pollen, the scent of wheat and wildflowers, the cry of hawks. People who live in such places know the wind not just by direction, but by sound, by weight, by taste. In the desert, wind sculpts the land. Grains of sand lifted into the air grind against rock, carving smooth arches and sharp spines, building dunes that rise, drift, and reshape. These dunes move slowly, inches per year, yet they are always moving. Wind gives deserts their voice, a constant murmur, a whistle between stones, a sudden howl across emptiness. The sand it carries may sting the skin, but it also holds memory. Dust that once fed far-off forests or seeded coral reefs after drifting across entire oceans. Wind is also the messenger of seasons. In spring, it carries warmth and pollen, waking seeds and lifting blossoms. In summer, it cools overheated ground and carries the scent of ripe fruit. In autumn, it gathers leaves in quiet spirals, spreads the smell of earth, and wood smoke. In winter, it sharpens, dries, and chills. A sculptor of frost, a keeper of silence. Each season writes a different letter, and the wind delivers it, not in pages, but in movement, in texture, in sound. And wind is not always welcomed. When its balance breaks, it becomes storm, gale, cyclone, hurricane. These are not just strong winds. They are wind given too much energy, too quickly. They rise from warm waters, build in spirals, pull the sky into rotation. Wind, when it grows wild, can tear down forests, lift roofs, scatter lives. Yet even these tempests are not mindless. They are nature's response to imbalance, furious, yes, but born of logic, of heat, of motion, trying to restore order. The science of wind has many names. Meteorologists speak of Beaufort scales, of pressure gradients, of anemometers and barometers. They measure gusts, track speeds, chart directions, but no number can capture what it feels like when a breeze wraps around your shoulders like a shawl, or when a sudden gust sends your hat flying down a lane, or when wind through a field sounds like waves on a shore. Artists and poets speak of wind as emotion, the wind of change, the breath of freedom, the whisper of memory. These are not metaphors, they are truths felt in the body. Wind changes us, it moves us, it reminds us that we too are made of air, lungs that fill and empty, voices that ride the breeze, thoughts that rise and scatter like dandelion seeds. Even sleep is tied to the wind. On hot nights, we open windows for a cross breeze. On cold ones, we seal drafts, pile blankets, and listen to the wind's lullaby outside. Travelers carry wind in their hair. Campers drift off beneath flapping tents. Children fall asleep to stories of winds that carry dreams or blow stars across the sky. And when we breathe in and out, we mimic the wind. We take in the world, let it stir within us, and send it back out changed. Wind and breath are kin. They move through, not around. They carry what was elsewhere into the now, and take what is here into the beyond. In many cultures, wind is sacred. The Greeks named it anemos. The Japanese speak of the kami of wind spirits that live in breezes and storms. Native American tribes tell of wind as the breath of the earth, the voice of the ancestors. In ancient texts, wind is the messenger of gods, the bringer of life, the shaper of fate. And so, when you stand in the wind, you are never alone. You are touching something timeless, something that has traveled across oceans and peaks to find you. You are hearing the same sounds heard by trees 1,000 years ago, by animals before memory, by stones since their first breath. The wind carries the world, not just across geography, but across time, and in that movement, it carries you too. And now, let us follow the wind to where it gently rests, to the quiet spaces after storms. The soft rustle of leaves at dusk, the calm that settles in the late hours of the night. The wind never truly stops, but it does slow, it does soften, it does become something you can barely feel. And in that softness, it reveals its final purpose, not to disturb, but to connect. To carry the world, yes, but also to carry stillness. The whisper of wind in the final breath of a long day is not just the air moving. It is the earth exhaling. Even in the most windless places, motion remains. Inside a forest blanketed in snow, the air between branches shifts ever so slightly. In a narrow canyon at noon, heat rises in thin columns, drawing tiny breezes toward its source. Wind lives even where it cannot be seen, even when you cannot hear it. It is always searching for balance, responding to warmth, to pressure, to shape. It may not be dramatic, but it is always present. After a storm, the wind may fall silent. Trees, stripped of their wild motion, stand still. Flags hang limp. The sea smooths its skin. But even then, change has occurred. The air has moved. Pollen has spread. Moisture has traveled. Salt from one shore now rests on another. A storm's wind does not vanish. It becomes part of the story that follows. The world feels different, not because the wind has left, but because it has done its work. In this final part of the journey, wind becomes memory. The scent left on clothes after a long walk, the dust settled on a shelf by an open window, the echo of chimes that no longer ring. All of it, traces of wind, evidence of movement. Wind carries time, not just through erosion or drift, but through presence. You can feel it in old buildings that creak when a breeze moves through them, in trees that lean just slightly from years of prevailing gusts. The land remembers which way the wind most often comes, and just as the land remembers, so do we. We remember the wind on the day of a farewell, when it caught your coat as you turned away. We remember the breeze in the grass during childhood, summers when the world felt soft and unending. We remember the gale that shook windows during a sleepless night, the gust that scattered blossoms across a stone path, the draft that brought the smell of rain long before the first drop fell. These are not weather events. These are human memories held in air. In some places, wind becomes tradition. The Mistral of France, a cold, dry wind that clears skies and changes moods. The Sirocco of North Africa, warm and dusty, blowing northward with stories of the desert. The Bora of Eastern Europe, fierce and sharp, descending from the mountains. These winds have names, personalities, reputations. People build with them in mind. Farmers sow or wait based on their arrival. Children grow up knowing what it means to wake to their voices. Even festivals arise from the wind. Kites dance in celebration. Lanterns lift into dusk on currents barely felt. Musical instruments, flutes, panpipes, Aeolian harps sing only when the air is moving. The wind is not merely a backdrop, it is a participant, a performer in the rituals of culture, joy, and remembrance. But wind is not only past, it is potential. In the turning of turbines, in the flutter of sails, in the rise of a bird from a ledge. It is energy, waiting to be caught, redirected, transformed. Today, we harness wind with towering blades, capturing its strength to power homes, cities, dreams. A modern windmill spins not for grain, but for electrons, light, warmth, motion, born of breeze. And yet, despite all we've built, all we've studied, wind remains humbling. We can measure it, model it, forecast it, but we cannot command it. It remains free-flowing where it chooses, rising and falling with patterns we glimpse but never fully master. Wind teaches us that control is not the same as understanding. That presence does not mean possession. Stand still on a cliffside, above the waves. Feel the wind press into you, not hard, but firmly enough to remind you that you are here, in this place, at this time, with this air around you. Let it move through your hair, your clothes, your thoughts. Let it take something with it, a worry, a regret, a hesitation. Let it leave something behind, clarity, coolness, the sense of being alive. Even your breath is part of this cycle. The air you release mingles with wind. Somewhere far away, someone else may breathe in the molecule you just let go. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, these do not end. They move, carried by wind across borders, beyond walls, past mountains. Your breath is not just yours. It belongs to the world. This truth connects us. We may speak different languages, live in different lands, walk different paths, but we all live beneath the same wind. The air that brushed the cheek of a child in another country may kiss yours tomorrow. The breeze that turned the pages of one book may rustle the curtains in your room tonight. Wind knows no barriers. It is the closest thing we have to shared space. And so, when you next feel the wind, let it remind you that movement is natural, that stillness is earned, that time is measured not just in clocks, but in the rise and fall of air. That presence is enough. Wind carries dust, seeds, wings, voices, change. It carries memories and moments, and it carries you gently, always into the next breath and the next. For the winds do not only carry the world, they carry our lives. Asterisk.